editor, KDK TV. And our guest this morning is Mike DeVanney, who is a political strategist in the Republican Party and has had lots of experience statewide. Mike, thank you, sir, very much for joining me. I appreciate that.
Thanks, John. Glad to be with you.
So what does it mean when Senator Pat Toomey says he's not running for re-election and he's not running also for governor in 2022?
Well, that announcement today sent shockwaves across the Republican horizon that our most prolific fundraiser, our longest serving and only statewide office holder has chosen to go back into private life. Pat Toomey was a very astute politician. He made a decision to not seek re-election to that office or governor. And there are a lot of people that were hoping that he would at least do one of those two, as Pennsylvania is really teetering right now. Is this going to be a purple state? Is this going to be a red state? Or is this going to be a blue state forever? And I think that a lot of party officials today were shocked by this news. I think saddened by it because Pat Toomey is a quality public servant. And now we have a very long time, really 2 years between now and the November election that will fill that seat.
Is this an opportunity for one of the younger Republicans or even older ones? I mean, it's not often that you have an incumbent give up a seat like the U.S. Senate seat. What does it mean politically in the Republican Party?
Yeah, it's certainly amazing to many people, particularly folks in my profession, that you have a elected official willing to give up a seat they likely could have held forever. And I think that just goes to show where Pat Toomey's priorities were with his family and after 20 years in public service, thinking that it's time to do something else. But that vacuum does create an opportunity for folks. And I think you really need to look at some of our younger elected officials in the party, particularly out here in Western Pennsylvania. We've got some stars in Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, who represents Southwestern Pennsylvania in Congress on the Republican side. And on the Democratic side, Connor Lamb, another young person who may look at this race. So, an opportunity has created itself for people to run for U.S. Senate. It's hard to raise the type of money you need to do to be competitive because you are limited to a certain dollar figure. So my sense is we will start to see who is serious about this race very quickly because in order to raise the kind of money you need to raise to be competitive, you have to start early. But I think I think Guy Reschenthaler in Western Pennsylvania is a great candidate. I think you're going to see a huge crop of candidates looking at the governor's office, but look to Southwestern Pennsylvania for a nominee for the U.S. Senate.
Well, let me ask you about the governor's race then, because you say do you think it's wide open when it comes to Republicans running for governor in I guess it would be the May of 2022 primary?
Yeah, right now, the gubernatorial primary is in essence a lifetime away. But today you can say it was conceived because you have a lot of people who were not thinking about that race yesterday that are thinking about it today. And that is because many people felt that Pat Toomey, should he not seek re-election U.S. Senate, would have been the Republican nominee for governor. So now you're going to have a lot of people. Calculus has changed. The field has changed. It will get larger and it will get more diverse. And, I think what we're going to see is probably anywhere from a 10 to 15 person field when all is said and done. And there will be quite the battle because if you follow the traditional wisdom that after 2 years of one party, 2 terms of one party, you get 2 terms of another, the likelihood of winning that office historically is high. So the prize is worth the fight. And I think you're going to see a lot of people looking at that race.
I will tell you, Mike, at this stage that a lot of the names I'm hearing on both the Democratic side and the Republican side are white males. Is this not the time for either a woman or a person of color to run for these statewide offices?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for anybody to run. Certainly if you are a person of color or a woman, I think that would be hugely beneficial. Last year in the Republican primary, Western Pennsylvania named Laura Ellsworth, sought the Republican nomination against Scott Wagner and Paul Mango. I think there's a great opportunity if you're going to have huge fields of white men for minority candidates to run. And right now, if you look at the Republican ticket, we have the most diverse statewide ticket we have ever fielded, in that we have 2 women and an African American running for our statewide row offices. So I think that's a strength. If you're a candidate who is a female or person of color, I'd be giving this some serious thought.
So now let me ask you, and I know this is a little difficult since we're so far out, but let me ask you to put on your prognostication cap. Is there anybody that you see who you think is a likely candidate for the U.S. Senate race, for the Republican nomination? Is it Guy Reschenthaler?
I don't think, I mean, likely, I don't know. I think who would be a good, strong candidate that would make that competitive? A conservative Republican from southwestern Pennsylvania. I mean, until recently, southwestern Pennsylvania regularly had one of the two U.S. Senate seats. Rick Santorum held it for 12 years. John Hines held it for a significant period of time. So there's a real advantage to being from southwestern Pennsylvania. And why I think Guy Reschenthaler is an attractive candidate was his military background, his youth, his vigor and energy. That you need that type of energy to run statewide. I think that's a background that would match up well against any of the candidates that the Democrats are talking about. But this race is a long way away. I'm hopeful that somebody of Guy's caliber gets in because it's critically important. We've had a really, we've had a good working relationship with having a Republican U.S. senator and a Democratic U.S. senator, and for us to have two Democrats, I think would be a terrible thing for the Commonwealth and obviously for the party. And so I hope that someone of Guy's caliber decides to get into that race.
And then how about on the governor's side? Do you think that is there any clear indication of who might run, or is this just really so wide open? You said a dozen, 15?
Well, open the phone book. I think you're going to have so many candidates get into this race. There is no front runner, largely, as we discussed, because many viewed Pat Toomey as the ascendant nominee. So I think you're going to have a bunch of people looking at this race. You will have state senators, you'll have members of Congress, you'll have self-funders, you'll have people who come from the activist wing. And to be frank, that's a good thing for the party. Both parties are in a period of transition as they're kind of realigning. And I think you're going to see this bring out a whole host of candidates. I'm hopeful that that's healthy and that's good for the process and that's good for the party. But at the end of the day, my hope is that we nominate a candidate not only who can win, but who can be an effective governor.
And final question, Mike, if I may, you've been involved in these statewide races. How much money does it take to run for governor of Pennsylvania or for the U.S. Senate for that matter?
Well, United States Senate races, the way they're financed has really changed over the years. I mean, Pat Toomey's last reelection, I think if you calculate all of the spend on both sides, being both candidates as well as their outside groups, it was over $100 million. To think about that for a United States Senate seat. Governor's races, are not that high, but you're probably going to see spends, in the tens of millions. You could see that up to, 40, 50, million dollars. And so this is high stakes races. There will be money flowing to both of these races, regardless of who the nominee is, because I think that Pennsylvania is going to be very competitive 2 years from now.
Well, Mike DeVanney, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your insights on this. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, John. Glad to be with you as always.